Welcome one, welcome all to day 4 of Mr. Wildman's gorgeous narration voice as he continues to guide you through the lovely Google Classroom experience. Today I want to take a look at Google Slides, which is what I promised at the end of last video, so that should come as no surprise. If you'll go ahead and navigate to your classroom and go to the stream page, you can see that upcoming we have presentation 1. The meaningful language learning quiz we already took a look at, and I said we weren't going to do, so we're not worried about that. That was a Google form, just for reference. We want to look at this presentation 1. We can either click this to take us to the assignment, or if we look in our classwork, we could go and look at it by clicking right there. If we look under our assessments, you will see that we've already done reflection 1, so it says turned in. A nice thing about Google Classroom is you can scroll through any of these assignments and see whether or not you have turned them in. If it still says assigned, that means you haven't turned it in. If it says turned in, well, guess what? You have turned it in. It's important to note that if you turn something into Google Classroom, depending on how the teacher has it set up, you may not be able to go back and edit it, because there's this thing called cheating that we try to avoid. So if you turn something in and you need to make any change to it and you're unable to unturn it in to get access to it again, you'll have to email your teacher to ask them to give you back that assignment so that you have permission to access it and make your changes and turn it back in. So today we're looking at that presentation 1 so that we can look at Google Slides. So I'm going to click it and we're going to see something very similar to what we saw yesterday. It is worth 100 points. I have the mark as done option or the add or create over here. As we said yesterday, we're not going to mark as done unless something strange happened. Either we shared it to the teacher's email and then decided to mark it as done, which I don't recommend, or something else happened. Maybe we had to turn it in person for whatever reason. For the most part, we want to start here. We want to start with the add or create. This says make a Google Slides presentation, so I'm going to go and click Slides. Slides is one of the Google apps. It is the equivalent of PowerPoint on Microsoft. So when I do that, it's going to automatically open a lovely slide. It's going to have my name at the top automatically populated and presentation 1 automatically there. Isn't that nice? The first thing that we see is a title slide. Typically people put a title here. So I'm going to write presentation 1. Google Slides is very intuitive, very easy to use. It's not the easiest to use on mobile devices. So if you're on a phone, and you can get access to a laptop, a PC, a Chromebook, or something like that, I highly recommend using that. Using a mouse is just a lot easier. This is one of the Google apps that is not quite easy to do because these little slides get smaller and smaller and smaller on your tiny screens. Typically people put their name here, which you're probably familiar with at this point if you've had to do any presentation in school. Something to know about Google Slides, it doesn't automatically just have a bunch of blank slides for you here. So, one way that we can get some slides in here is to go to Slide and click a new slide, and that's going to give us a new slide. Another option is to right-click this column over to the left and then click New Slide. It's a lot easier. That's what I prefer. All new slides are going to look like this. They're going to have your title and then text. So I could say, hey, as my title, and then maybe hey, 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 as my text. You can imagine this might say something like meaningful language learning, and then the text would be why I find that important for this particular assignment. These text boxes are resizable. You can do all sorts of things. I can move them across the screen. Google Slides will automatically center things for you. So you see that red line that appears when I approach the center? That tells me that it's centered this way. I can also center it the other way. Let's just make sure that the text is centered in the box first, or it won't really make a difference. I can just drag slightly and you'll see, look, we're centered in the middle of the whole thing. So that's a possibility with Google Slides. You can move any of this stuff around. You can move the title, text around, however you want. You can also change the format by right-clicking the slide over here on the left, click Apply Layout, and click any number of these pre-formatted formats. I could click that, for example, and now I have a title across the top and two text boxes. Maybe I put hey, 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 and yo, yo, yo over here. What else could we do? We could change it to have this sort of format for like a big number is sort of the underlying idea. And they give you ideas on here. Maybe you want a caption for a text and it just sort of throws these randomly around. Obviously it wasn't made for that sort of thing. This is probably the most commonly used format in presentations that I see both in high school and college levels. is to have your title, a description kind of over to the side, and then some sort of image or video over here. Generally, you don't want to just write information like paragraphs of exactly what you're going to say on a presentation because it gets very boring. Instead, we want a lot of visuals. So I like to split about like that. I think the default format is a little skinny, but maybe about like that. And now I've got a lot of space, so I can have my key points over here. I could choose to bullet those points or list them using these options up here. I can do a numbered list or a bulleted list. All lovely possibilities. I'm going to Control Z and get rid of that. And now we need to add images to our slide. This is really the big point of this, the big kahuna of Google Slides and of presentations in general is visuals, right? Presentations are not made for you to go stand up in front of the classroom or in front of an audience and read index cards that are digital. No, that's not how it works, which you'll learn in your English classes. Instead, we want to have our key information on here, which hopefully is more in-depth than hey, 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 but not a word-for-word paragraph. And then we're going to have some sort of images. So our image options on Google Slides are pretty vast. We can either upload from your computer. This is a image that you already have on your computer. We can search the web, we can look at our Google Drives, Google Photos, or we can import by URL, or even use our camera that's connected to our computer. Let's use the search the web option. This is going to bring us options through Google Images. These are only going to be images that have copyright licenses that allow you to use them. So if I say, for example, Nike in here, I can literally click and drag and drop. That's how easy it is. And now it's going to bring that image into my presentation onto the slide. Now, if I double click it, I'll get these little black bar lines. That's going to allow me to crop the image. See, there's a lot of black in this one. I want to get rid of all that. I'm going to crop it so that maybe it'll fit better. Oops, didn't mean to drag it. Onto our presentation. I'm going to do it one more time. And then I can just drag the corner over here to resize it. So the blue lines are our size lines. The black lines, when we double click, are our crop lines. Another option for importing images could be to go to Google Images yourself. Let's type in Nike again. We go over to our images, and you'll see that the images are slightly different because this shows you all the images that Google has access to, not necessarily just the ones that are copyright approved for you to use and things like this. Generally, if you're not selling someone else's images, and if you cite them properly, there's some leeway in education with fair use on these sorts of images. But that being said, if you always want to be safe, you can go to the insert image, search the web, and this is going to give you things that are already marked for us to use. That being said, if we want to use a Google image or an image from anywhere on the internet, there's a way to go ahead and do that if it's not showing up in that particular thing. If we click on that image, it's going to show us this screen. This one is about medium sized. I'm going to right click it and click copy image address. I have seen students before copy image address from right here. If you do that, you might end up copying the image address for the thumbnail. It'll be too small and it'll wind up pixelated. So I would recommend clicking it first and then clicking right click and then copy image address. We go back to our main page. We got our slide about the Nike shoes. Hey, hey, hey. I'm going to click insert image by URL. URL is that link that we copied. And I'm just going to paste it. And that's going to give us this. Maybe I'll resize that, crop it a little bit. Woo, that's not what I want to do. I want to grab the black one, not the blue one, to crop, not resize, and squish it. And there we have it. Fun thing to know from here, if I want this shoe to face the other way because it maybe looks a little more artistically appealing, I can just grab one end and flip it over the other on the resizing blue lines, and it will automatically flip the image. This goes the same way that way. It'll flip the image on that axis. Isn't that nice? Now some last details that I might do if I was actually making a real slide about Nike and had said something more than hey, hey, hey. I can resize this to match. You'll see that Google gives you all these little guidelines so that it makes everything line up certain ways if you want that to happen. So So if I want this space to be the same on both sides, I could do that. I can right click this, and I could even animate it if I wanted to, if you wanted like a 4th grade style presentation where every word says floats in and explodes onto the page. That's all a possibility. I can also edit the text color up here. I can edit the text font up here, change it to something kind of wispy. I can make it bigger by clicking right there. I could highlight it a different color. I could change the fill color of this particular, what would you call this, text box. Maybe I want to make it gray. I could do that. Change the color of this box as well. Maybe I make it a dark red, and we're just making it look uglier and uglier. We go to our text color, we can change that to white, for example. There's a lot of possibilities, and the point of all of that is to say that Google Slides has a lot of possibilities with what you can do visually. And anytime you're dealing with a presentation, you're dealing primarily with the visual, not necessarily with the written aspect of the information. Hopefully you go ahead and learn how to present your information in a way that's interesting, that doesn't rely on you having to read some sort of card, right? So instead of that, we want something that that is captivating and displays the information using a lot of imagery. There's some other things we can insert into a Google Slide presentation. We can put audio in there. We can even embed links to other websites and things like that. That comes in handy. In order to do that, I can just highlight any text, click the little link button, and then paste a link. I'm just going to paste the same link to that image that's already down there. It's going to underline that, and now that's hyperlinked, and it'll show up. So if your teacher goes and clicks that link, it's going to bring you wherever. Maybe it brings you to an article, news website, some resource that you use in the presentation. In this case, it'll bring us to that picture, to the original picture. So those are some ideas for using Google Slides. So I know today went a little bit longer than our other videos, but I really wanted to show you some of those very basic tips for Google Slides that can help you out in those sorts of presentations, because I know you're going to be doing a lot of those regardless of what class you're in. Have a great day. That's all I got for you.